What that basically means is when big corporations get sued, there's all this digital evidence such as emails and Word documents and files that you have on your systems that's evidence of the matter itself. What I do is I work with various teams to gather up that information so that lawyers can review it and produce plaintiff's counsel. Oh, sorry, is it too low? I kind of just fell into this role. I wish I could say I had some sort of epiphany where I thought, you know what, I want to be a manager of forensic technology. But for one, that doesn't sound that interesting. Two, it definitely doesn't sound cool. But I kind of just fell into it, and like my intro said, I started out as a business intelligence consultant, helping corporations make sense of their information. I eventually moved to KPMG when one of my friends actually reached out to me and told me about this position he thought I'd be a good fit for. So I applied to it. I got the job. It was an entry-level position, and I worked my way up through the corporation and continue to work my way up through it. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Oh wait, yeah. So, well, in terms of writing and how I use it on a day-to-day basis, 90% of what I do is communicate, and a large portion of that communication is in written form. So whether it's an email or a Word document or a legal memo, or let's say just a proposal, a large portion of my day, I would say a good 70% of my day is just writing. And so I wish I had a story about how, I wish I had an interesting story about how writing has really made a significant impact on my career, except for the fact that I use it every day. But instead, I want to share kind of a personal story about writing. And it's kind of a fun story, but I've always remembered the story about one of my college professors. He was an English professor. And he told me this story about how he wrote this letter to the Mars Corporation about how much he loved M&Ms and how great their product was and how much he just loved the candy growing up. He sent out that letter, and a week later, they gave him a month's supply of M&Ms just for writing a letter. I thought that was always cool. It wasn't too long ago where I actually purchased a vehicle, and within the first month, I had a slew of issues, whether it was electrical or mechanical. For the first month, it was in the shop for a good half the time. So I wasn't really happy at the time. I was pretty upset about that. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna write them a letter. And in this letter, I thought it was gonna be a nasty letter, basically telling them how they shouldn't build cars like this and how upset I was and all this. And I thought back to the letter that my college professor wrote. And I said, you know what if I put a positive spin on this? Let's see how that works. So I did tell them about the issues I was having, but I put a positive spin on it, in the fact that I talked about how great their company was, how I'm a big fan of their cars, how I still trust and believe in their brand, how their customer service at the dealership was amazing. They treated me like a king and all these great things. So I wrote that email up and I sent it out. The next day, I actually received a call from the customer service rep. He called me, he said, hey, thank you for the letter. We really appreciate your kind words. We'd like to help out. We'll get back to you. We just need to process some information first. I was like, great. 2 days later, they called me up again. And they said, we contacted the dealership. The dealership said that the dealership is ecstatic that you really think highly of their service and their people. They want to give you 5 years of free Audi care. So I was like, wow, really? That itself is $3,000. And so the point of that, I spent basically 30 minutes of my life writing this email, and I netted $3,000 just from that. And I think the point is that just goes to show just how important writing is and how you can use it in everything, not just work life, but your everyday life. If you're an effective writer, you can get things. You can get free stuff. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, and I think that's my story. It wasn't Mitsubishi, no.
All right, thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Kenny. Our panel member is Lindsay Santos. Lindsay is a first-generation Salvadoran American and a native of Southgate, California. Lindsay earned her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science at California State University, Los Angeles. She earned her Juris Doctorate at Loyola Law School, Los Angeles, where she's also head coordinator to the Young Lawyers Program, an advocacy program that mentors high school students from at-risk communities. As soon as she passed the California State Bar exam in 2012, she opened her own firm and practiced criminal defense for a couple of years. She then moved on to become a deputy public defender for the County of Los Angeles. And she presently represents clients in felony preliminary hearings. Lindsay is on the board of directors for the Latina Lawyers Bar Association, and she's presently chair to the organization's Young Lawyers Subcommittee. Welcome, Lindsay.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very honored. Thank you, Berlin. We go way back, junior high. I'm a deputy public defender. I practice criminal defense. I represent indigent clients. Constitution affords anyone who is accused of a crime and can't afford to pay for their own private attorney. The Constitution gives them the right to be represented by one. So that's where I come in. I'm appointed. And Donato, like Donato said, he was practicing and it wasn't for him, and it's an acquired taste. But I have to say, I absolutely love my job. I see interesting things all day, every day. I have stories for days, and some of them, in the moment, I wasn't smiling, but now that I look back, I laugh because there's just crazy things. But anyway, becoming an attorney, whether it's criminal defense, whether it's civil, whether it's probate, landlord-tenant, I mean, there's so many different fields of law. And when I practiced on my own, I primarily practiced criminal defense, but I also practiced civil litigation. I practiced probate, which is, if you don't know what probate is, it's, somebody dies, where does their stuff go? People, fighting for, possessions of the deceased. I've practiced a little bit of family. I've dabbled in a little bit of immigration, some landlord-tenant, jack of all trades type of thing. I had to pay bills. I didn't like any of that. The only one I really liked was criminal defense, but, I have to eat. So, but anyway, to become an attorney, effective writing is the gatekeeper. Because in order to get your license, to get that bar card that you are just running towards when you're in law school, you have to take a 3-day exam. It's 6 hours a day, so 18-hour exam. And 2 of those days is nothing but writing. The first and third day, morning, it's 3 hours you're given. You're given 3 fact patterns. Well, before I go to that, you have 2 months to master 17 areas of law. And you don't know what's going to be on that exam. You have no clue what they're going to throw at you, but you got to master all of it. And guess what? They don't test you on all of it. So you're spending all this time breaking your head trying to memorize 100 and something page outlines per subject. So that's like 17 outlines that are over 100 pages long that you're trying to memorize. And then you're given 3 essays in the morning on the first day, and basically you allot your time the way you can, and you basically have to take this fact pattern apart, remember the law that you memorized, and apply that law to those facts, and you just have to write your heart out. And if you're not a good writer, you're not going to pass. And you have to do that the first day and the third day, and then in the afternoon, first day and third day, you have to do what's called a performance exam. And basically, it's like 30 pages. It's a case, like a fake case. 15 of those pages, give or take, are like a case file. You got communications in there. You have letters, motions, a plethora of things. And then you have another 15 pages, and it's just cites, citations, authorities, maybe some case law, some statutes, and they basically tell you, okay, you're going to write either a persuasive brief, or you're going to have to write a memo to a judge, or you're going to have to write a contract. I mean, you don't know what they're going to throw at you, but the point is, you have to have the ability to take in all that information and then communicate it in writing to the person that's reading it. You got to be able to keep them alert. You got to be able to be organized so that they know where you're going before you even start getting into the flesh of the work. And that's a big chunk of how you become an attorney. Because once you pass that bar exam, and thank God it only took me one time, but once you pass that bar exam, you get that license that you. I mean, I remember when I passed the bar, when I opened up, you know, they don't even do it in a like nice personalized way, like, hey, congrats, you passed the bar. No, it's like the name above appears on the pass list for the whatever, you know, exam. And I remember my legs gave way and I was crying because it was just the biggest. I mean, that's the biggest accomplishment. And I worked so hard for it. And being able to write well is what got me there. Being able to take all the information that I was given and then put it on paper. Because it's one thing to understand it, but you don't really truly understand material until you're able to explain it effectively to someone else. And for the bar exam, you have to explain it effectively in writing. So that's how writing was what got me where I'm at. Now, on what I do now in my day-to-day, communication, as my fellow panelists have emphasized, communication, whether it's public speaking or writing or reading, I do all of that every day because I have to read the facts of my cases, read the law, interpret it, apply it, sometimes in motions, or writing down my questions if I'm going to cross-examine a witness, like a police officer, writing down my questions, writing down my points, motions to dismiss or suppression motions, all that stuff. I have to be able to effectively communicate it in writing, and then I have to effectively argue it before a judge. And I mean, that's the essence of my job. So I can't stress enough. Right now that you guys have the opportunity to learn from great professors and, take advantage, like I forgot one of my fellow panelists said to take advantage of these types of opportunities where you get to meet, professionals who do this on a daily. Take advantage of that, especially, I know you said you want to be an attorney one day. Networking is, it's all about who you know. So you need to take advantage. You need to take advantage of all that. That's something else. It's aside from writing. Networking is a big thing because thankfully throughout my time in law school, I never had to thankfully write a resume or a writing sample. Usually it was because of networking I got a job. I met people and they just, got to know me and offered me positions. But being an attorney, writing is everything. Reading, writing, and public speaking is everything. And, there's, like I said, there's many fields of law that don't include public speaking. You don't like public speaking, but you kind of are interested in law. You don't have to be a litigator. You could be a transactional attorney, work with contracts behind a desk, and interpret things, negotiate for big companies and stuff like that. But the whole point is being able to communicate and being able to also absorb others' communication by reading and interpreting what they're saying is vital in any profession, I believe, in any job that you want to get. You're able to write effectively, that means you're able to communicate and speak effectively. And if you're able to do that, you're gold. And that's about it.
Thank you. Well, we do still have a few more minutes, and we would like to open it up to questions from the audience. So I want to start with one question, and as we transfer, Marcus, would you want to grab one of these mics and bring it to the podium? I wanted to start out with one question while people decide and start to queue up behind the podium there to ask their question because we want it to be heard by everyone. Could you tell maybe anyone, speak to hearkening back to your first English class in college? And maybe think about your perspective now as opposed to then, or what you weren't thinking or were thinking then and how it relates to now. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Thanks.
My first English class in college. Honest answer, hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was an early morning class. I think it was 9 a.m. to 9:50. And I think what was more annoying, the fact that I didn't like writing at the time, was that the professor was he was just over the top, gung-ho, today, let's get passionate about writing. And I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? I just had no desire, no interest at all to write. And one of the things that he told me, this is something that I recommend to anyone, if you're just against writing, it's boring, it's too long or something, the number one thing that helped me in his class as a freshman at Dominguez Hills was writing about something that I loved. Find what it is that you're passionate about, whether it's about music, cars, fashion, anything. And at the time, for me, what was my passion? What did I write about? I think it was travel. Being a military brat and having moved around so many places, I kind of chose that as my focus when it came to writing. And once you find out something that you're really interested in, you have a passion for it, it's easy. It gets easier. It gets so much easier. So that was my first impression of my first English class. And again, just finding what my passion was, I got used to it, and I started doing it on the side, and then I started reading more. I asked one of the college professors, I actually asked a high school teacher, and I asked a college profession, what's your number one struggle? And a lot of times as students, you may not hear this. You'll get the papers back with a red pen, the red pen of death, and I don't care how nice your comment is, it looks bad, and you feel bad, and you're like, I'm done. But you can't. Feedback is good. Number one, feedback is good. But the point I was making with this is finding out what it was that I was passionate about made reading a lot easier. Oh, the teacher said the number one problem they had was with people not wanting to read. And again, when we talk about written communication in general, reading and talking goes together. Remember I said if you can talk, you can write. It all kind of blends in together. And once I started reading more, I became more interested in writing. So again, that was my first take on English as a freshman.
I can touch on this briefly. My freshman writing class, I remember it was also an early morning class, so I was in my pajamas a lot going through it. But I remember specifically, everyone had turned in their first assignments, and clearly the professor was not too happy with the way that they had turned out. So the next class we had was all about sentence structure. And he had asked, does anyone here know how to diagram a sentence? And nobody raised their hand. I did know how to diagram a sentence, but because nobody raised their hand, I wasn't going to volunteer that I knew that information. But he then went on to explain the reason it's important. And there's a lot about grammar that still to this day, we start talking about gerunds and subject predicates and all of that stuff, and it's it goes out, in one ear, out the other. But the reason that's very important is because when you get out of just the names of this type of stuff, it's important because how you structure your communication is the best way of effectively communicating with someone, right? So that was the thing I took from it, and it's still, through to this day, everything that the five of us talked about exists with that, which is, learning effective communication. And so it was a memory that will always last with me. And he was a writer. And, something that Christmas said. So if it's a passion of yours, again, completely embrace that. Maybe it's a passion of yours. This professor loved baseball. I am bored senseless with baseball, but he wrote a book about baseball and we all had to read it. And it was his passion, it's not mine, but he's an effective writer, and so it kind of got me into learning about, more about the sport. And I think that's the other great part about it, is that maybe you're gonna get people who don't have any interest in what you're writing about, but if you're a good writer, they're gonna spend the time to get through it because it's easy to understand and comprehend. So.
Does anyone in the audience have a question you'd like to? Come on up to the podium and ask your question there in the microphone. Make sure you speak right into it. Speak up. Jump. Go right up to the microphone. Right up. Mm-hmm. There you go.
This is for Charisma and Lindsay. Have you had any setbacks or obstacles in your job because you're a minority or a woman?
I wouldn't call them setbacks, because I like to take every negative situation and spin it. However, being a Latina attorney, it's rough sometimes because, especially in LA, we come from machista backgrounds, so a lot of times the men try to, they try to belittle us, or they try to make us feel inferior to them, and they try to underestimate. But I'm growing up the way I grew up, I was always underestimated, and I like to take advantage of that. I like when you underestimate me, because then when I come out swinging, your guard's down. But I've encountered a lot being a woman of color. I'm underestimated a lot. A lot of times, I'd have to prove myself a lot. But actually, this actually reminds me of a teacher. I don't know if you had him, but he was a Calvary teacher. I remember in high school, and this is kind of like, this was just like foreshadowing the struggle I would have to deal with later on. I wrote I wrote a paper, and I misunderstood the page limit, and I thought it was, instead of like 5 pages, I thought it said 15. So I wrote 15, and when I got my paper back, I had a B-, and underneath it said, "You wrote this?" When I did. He was questioning me. He thought that I couldn't write that, and that basically foreshadowed the rest of my educational career, where I'd have to really prove myself, not just in my writing, but in class, speak up more and let them know I am capable of writing this type of work. So there's definitely been obstacles because of being a woman and also being a woman of color.
If I could piggyback on that, working in the automotive industry, we all know the automotive industry is heavily male-dominated. I've worked for 2 Asian manufacturers, heavily male-dominated. For the most part, we're either going to have Asian engineers or white males. So it kind of goes back to having to prove yourself as a black woman. But taking it back to our focus here, knowing that it was a tough industry, that just made me realize that, okay, I really have to show and prove that I can do the job. Again, primarily everything that I've done, especially having worked at Mitsubishi in mediation, has to do with writing. When Danny mentioned his experience with his car, I handled that. I worked with customers. I worked directly with attorneys. I worked directly with Attorney General Office of State agencies. I would have communication coming from all different directions. And I would read the communications that weren't so clear. And I'm like, this is an attorney writing like a 3rd grader? Again, how you write is not only a reflection of you, but it's a reflection of your organization. So whether you're going into a particular career, corporate America may not be for everyone. You may want to start your own business. That's fine, but that doesn't negate the fact that you need to have writing skills. So going back to any type of obstacles, I don't necessarily want to say that, but just knowing that I had a strength pick a struggle. Let me just say that. Pick a struggle. My struggle was math. Horrible. Even to this day, even to get into grad school, my struggle was math. Something to figure out. But writing, you can write your way. Like I said, you can write your way into things if you figure out the structure. To get these jobs, to get these different positions, I had no idea, I had no experience, but I could write my tail off and make it be convincing. So just coming back to your question, obstacles, just because of the industry that I was in, but I used the skills to my advantage as opposed to letting it limit me.
So my question is for Lindsay, and when you practice law, it would relate to you. In the situation that you were defending a person that you know is guilty, or the reasons why you have to defend this person are actually going against your principles, what do you do? How does it affect your work?
Well, a lot of times I encounter clients who they'll even admit they did it, but they'll give me a reason like, well, I was reacting to some sort of action, or sometimes I've had clients where what they're being accused of isn't something that sits well with me, but I have learned how to set myself aside, because when I'm in court and when I'm with my client, I have to continually remind myself that my job isn't to go with my convictions. I chose this job in particular because even if they're accused of doing something really bad, they still have a right to a defense, and they still have a right to have somebody swinging for them and make sure that that person doesn't get railroaded. Because a lot of times they may be overcharged, or there may be circumstances that could provide some sort of a defense to them and give them less time, but no one's gonna, they need somebody to present that defense for them. So I have to continually remind myself, even if the client, because I get a lot of, since being a public defender, I have a lot of mentally ill clients. And a lot of times they're very difficult. But I have to continually remind myself that I signed up for this. I know that I'm not gonna be able to get along with all my clients, but despite that, I signed up for this. They deserve a defense. They deserve someone who believes in them at the end of the day, because I may be the only friend they have. And I have to remind myself of that. And whatever they're accused of, I have to put my personal thoughts aside and just remember that I am their attorney. I am fighting for them, not for me, for them. And once I clock out, I can think whatever I want, but when I'm on the clock, I have to continually remind myself, I'm here for them. That's my job. And that's basically how I deal with it.
For me, it was essentially the same thing. I like to view myself as the gatekeeper of making sure that the government did their job right. And part of that is because I don't want to get into the social justice warrior side of this, because I won't stop talking about it. But essentially, I'm 100% pro-police. I believe it's a very difficult job. I believe it's very hard to go out into a community where maybe you don't fit in and you don't belong, and you have to deal with those issues that go beyond your job just to the uniform that you're wearing. That being said, I feel that because it's the government, they need to be held to the strictest standards possible. So for me, I did a lot of DUI defense, and if I'm defending someone, yes, they drank and then they drove, and they broke the law. But the police, we have to hold the police to the same standards that we set as the community. And if that means that we have to go through and read every word of their report to make sure that it's 100% honest, or as honest as it can be, if that means that we have to say you can't bring this in, you can't skirt the rules just because you have the power, then that's the role that I was willing to play and wanted to play. But then connected to that too, you have to remember that just because someone commits a crime doesn't necessarily mean that they're a terrible person. The last case I did was in San Diego in June, and it was a 21-year-old former Marine who got drunk with an ex-girlfriend, and then they had an argument, and he drove off from the bar and ended up killing 2 people. And here's a kid from Oklahoma whose mother is a school teacher, whose father is a cattle rancher, and they have to fly out from Oklahoma to then see him in a cage, which is basically, he broke 4 vertebrae in his back, but in jail. So they can't hug him, they can't come anywhere close to him, and they have to realize that the next time they will get to touch him, at best, will be 13 years from now. And at worst, would be 50 years from now. So, you know, the reality is, yeah, he did something wrong, but he still deserved a defense, and he still deserved to have the opportunity to present those type of facts, because we're all humans at the end of the day, regardless of circumstance.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out here today and talking to us. My question is about kind of bridging the gap between writing and speaking, because you all spoke about how important writing was in your job, but you're all obviously wonderful speakers up here giving us all this information. So I was wondering how, this is open to anyone who's willing to talk, just how you bridge the gap between writing and speaking, because there can be a lot of anxiety that comes with public speaking, especially to a group this big, even one-on-one speaking. So just wondering about your personal experiences with that.
So there is one thing that I wanted to bring up, and it is related to this, which is we talk a lot about writing and speaking. A big part of making those skills very, very good is reading. So it's a two-way communication street, right? It's not just us speaking, it's not just us writing in our jobs, someone else is reading that. So one way that you improve both your communication aspects of writing and speaking is read a lot. Read good materials, read things by respectable people who have articulated things that you want to someday articulate. After I left Riot and started doing my own thing, I read The Warren Buffett Way. I read, The Lean Startup, which is a book about software development pipelines. And that introduced to me a language that I had not yet known to speak in as an engineer. So that is a way that you can get a lot better at speaking and writing, because these are new languages. You have to consider the audience of what you're writing and what you're saying. And the only way to do that is consume good stuff. Consume the good stuff that's out there, and stay away from BuzzFeed and that kind of thing. Like, those kinds of things are fun, sure, but at the end of the day, a good book really goes a long way to teach you how to speak to their audience, and then you can do the same.
Well, you guys are tired of hearing me talk, but let me piggyback onto that for a moment. Your question is bridging writing with public speaking.
Masters, I know, has like a
Right, I have flyers in the back. Toastmasters may not be for everyone, but it's kind of like a pain in life that you should go through and you should try. One of the things I mentioned earlier, for those of you who struggle with writing or you're just not interested in writing, is number one, writing what you're passionate about. Number two is figure out what you want your point to be. For me, going back to that freshman, and maybe even going further back to high school, Lord, I'm old. Even going further back to high school, the struggle was, what do I write about? But the bigger struggle for students, and I think for teachers as well, is what's your point? What's your point? You can get up there and write a 20-page essay about anything. You can go through a manuscript for a case. What is your point? Are you here to inform? Do you want to inform your audience, this is how you do X, Y, and Z? Do you want to inspire your audience? I want each of you to go to Toastmasters. Do you want to persuade your audience? I want you to write a better paper. For me, I think figuring out what your point is, or do you want to be the critic? How many of you are, this is a stupid question, but Facebookers? right? Everyone is on Facebook. And every now and then you look at a thread and there's always that person who thinks they're the religious advocate, they're the political activist. I mean, there's always someone in your timeline who thinks they know the world, right? BuzzFeed, everywhere, wherever it is that you go, everyone thinks that they're a critic, they're an authoritarian on something, wherever it may be. But what's your point? And I love hopping on those. But you still want to formulate your, so are you for or against? If you're for picking up after dogs in the parks, then make sure that you're stating that clearly. So again, the big component is figuring out what you want your message to be. And I think once you figure that out, whether it's for or that, then everything will kind of come together and your English teachers will love you.
A quick follow-up on that, which is they are very interrelated, because I'm sure we all have those friends who you ask them, hey, how was your day? Oh gosh, well, so I woke up this morning and then, my cereal, there was no milk, and then after there was no milk, like, I went outside and I stepped in some dog crap, and then after that, and by the time you've spent 10 minutes and you've only gotten through the first half of the morning, and you're like, okay, what are you trying to communicate effectively? Or what are you trying to say, right? And it's the exact same in writing as it is in speaking. And I think that's ultimately, I hated reading when I was a kid. Absolutely hated it. But I don't know, if you find something that inspires you and that you're passionate about, it's a trickle-down effect. It's all gonna improve, every aspect of it. So your own communication skills are gonna get better once you see how people effectively communicate. Or once you start writing more and you start seeing that you can effectively communicate. Hey, I used to, write something for school, or I used to write something for work, and I would always get these questions afterwards. Okay, what do you mean by this? Or, how are we supposed to make this work, etc. Well, as you start doing it more and you get better at it, those questions will start becoming fewer and fewer, and then you'll realize that you're kind of on the right trajectory. So, I don't know.
Ditto. I believe writing and public speaking kind of go hand in hand. It's all about communication. And every time I talk to someone about communication, because I wasn't always the best communicator, and I had to work on it. I had to work on it every single day until I became a better communicator. Because I was a computer science geek. I was all about just programming and just being a nerd, right? But eventually I had to learn how to communicate. And because it doesn't matter how smart you are, but if you can't communicate your thoughts effectively, no one's gonna believe you that you're the smartest person in the world. You could be, but that person who's a great communicator, you're gonna think the world of them. So it's the same with writing. The same thing applies with writing as it does in public speaking.
To echo the rest of the panel, what helps me is, like I said, if I have to present an argument before a judge, I write it down first. And then once I have my points or my headings, in line, I'm able to just basically recite it. And so I would, if you're trying to become more effective in public speaking, I would suggest writing what you want to say first and then presenting it orally.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question, and then those of you who have questions, we'll have time where you can speak to the panel members individually. We'll have some more time here to just speak individually, talk. You all can stay around for a few more minutes, right? Awesome. Okay, one more question. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. It's been a great experience for me. My question is for Mr. Clay. You mentioned that you served in the military and that it was the best thing that you ever done. I'd like to know why. How so?
So, number one, first and foremost, was the fact that it allowed me to get my law degree without any debt. And I have and so the reason I was able to go back to school to now start a career that I'm very passionate about and that I enjoy is because I don't have the weight of hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt above me. I have a lot of friends that are also attorneys but don't really enjoy it. And I feel if you shouldn't do something unless you're really passionate about it. If going to work makes you hate going to work, then you need to find something else to do. And I feel that was the number one reason. And then number two, which is also connected to that, was that they also paid for the degree that I did do, which was the public health degree. So there are a lot of great benefits, I think, that exist just up front. Next, it allowed me to become very good at dealing with people from a variety of backgrounds because you're forced to just do that. And it was, so ultimately writing is the great equalizer amongst us, right? But I felt that same level of interconnectivity with the Army as well, because I'll tell you a brief story. My first time in basic training was in Fort Knox, and it was a cadet basic training basically that took place. It was about 6 weeks. And there was a guy from Alabama, and I will protect the names, and then there was a guy from Northern California whose last name was Kim. And having lived in Southern California, I knew that, well, if his last name is Kim and he's Asian, he's more likely than not Korean, or Korean American, I should say. But there was a guy from Alabama who asked a very racist question, and made an assumption because he was an Asian American. And I looked at him saying, like, how could you be so stupid to ask a question like that? You're a college student, without realizing he has no experience whatsoever. So I went to a place of anger immediately when in reality he was just ignorant. And ignorance isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you haven't been exposed to something you don't know about something else. And where it becomes important is realizing where you're ignorant and then moving beyond that. So we can be ignorant in a lot of things. I'm ignorant in every type of math that exists on this planet. But I realize it, and I have worked to better myself at it. It hasn't happened, but I'm still trying, and maybe one day I'll get there. And I feel like that was a great experience because I got to see how Mr. Kim reacted to that, and then spoke with him and explained, no, my parents are actually from Korea, and let me tell you where Korea is, and I'll tell you how this works, etc. And it was a great teaching moment. So I feel like there were a lot of opportunities for that. Also for writing, you have to communicate at every level in the military, whether you're enlisted or an officer. Orders they're written and they have to get passed down along a chain. And information gets passed up along the chain. So I don't know, is anyone familiar with the term CYA? Okay. Cover your, what. And the reason that's an important term, it's lawyer speak. Lawyers use it all the time, but it's really important because whatever job you're doing, having good writing skills is important because let's say you're at work and you see someone doing something very dangerous, and you don't want to say anything the first time, but then you notice that it's like a repetitive pattern. If you start taking notes of what's happening and you can write those notes effectively, maybe your employer gets sued, maybe you get pulled into this. Now you can say, oh, well, I have a catalog of every time I notice something wrong happening, and I can go back to it, and it's written, and I'm communicating exactly what happened. The date is here, the time, all of the facts that are necessary. So now it's a great way of keeping yourself out of trouble, and that's effective writing skills. But if you're keeping things and you're not dating it, you're not effectively saying what happened or when it happened, it's a lot of trouble to kind of sort that out. So I would recommend I would recommend trying to apply everything that we've talked about today in every aspect of your life. There isn't a single aspect of your life where writing won't be important. I don't care if you want to be an actor. I don't care if you want to sell fruit. You're going to have to know how to write effectively, and you have to be able to communicate to everyone. And I think that's ultimately what I would say. Also, one last thing before we break this up. You have to network to get work, right? So I know that was mentioned earlier. I look at a lot of resumes at Cedars-Sinai, and I will tell you the easiest way of determining whether or not someone is going to get a job is looking at how they've written their resume. And there's tons of great resources. If you guys want to send me resumes, feel free. I will edit, I'll do whatever, give you tips, it doesn't matter. Because I feel like everything is already stacked against you, so do what you can to make it that much easier on you. You know, use it as the great equalizer that it is. And also in networking, if you're gonna send someone a LinkedIn request, you better make sure that everything that's on your LinkedIn page is written correctly and all of the words are spelled correctly. I mean, you don't even really have to know how to spell anymore. Spell check is out there. So, you know, like utilize all of the tools in the box, and I think, you know, you can be effective.
Thank you. I really want to thank Charisma, Daniel, Donato, Denny, and Lindsay one more time. We really appreciate you coming tonight. And on the last note of networking, one way to network is very simply come up and thank them individually, and maybe even make an innuendo. How can I get a business card? Can I send you my resume? What's your email? The offer's out there. All right, thanks everyone. So stick around, talk, network, and see you in October.